Imagine flipping a coin and it landing exactly on its edge. Now imagine doing that twice in a row. The probability doesn't even begin to capture the odds of surviving 2 atomic bomb blasts in a single week. In early August 1945, Tsutomu Yamaguchi was a 29-year-old naval engineer finishing up a 3-month design trip in Hiroshima. His bags were packed. His only real focus was wrapping up his final tasks so he could catch a train back to his hometown to see his wife and their infant son. He had no way of knowing that hundreds of miles away, the military was loading an entirely unprecedented weapon of mass destruction onto a B-29 bomber. He was going about his normal morning commute, while a device capable of leveling an entire city was being prepared for deployment directly over his location. At the time, the general public knew absolutely nothing about splitting atoms or nuclear payloads. When that device detonated, he would be forced to navigate a landscape of radiation and heat that no human had ever been prepared to survive, completely blind to the physics tearing his world apart. On the morning of August 6th, he heard the drone of an engine. Looking up into the clear sky, he watched a single, small parachute slowly descending. A fraction of a second later, his vision was entirely consumed by a blinding white light. Looking at this map of Hiroshima, we can pinpoint his exact location relative to the hypocenter, the point directly beneath the blast. He was standing roughly 3 kilometers, or just under 2 miles away. That specific distance was the first crucial variable keeping him alive. But distance alone was not enough. Drawing on his naval training, he instantly dove to the ground, rolling into a nearby irrigation ditch. As the diagram shifts, you can see how sinking below ground level shielded his body from the direct thermal radiation and deflected the worst of the concussive shockwave passing overhead. Surviving ground zero required a precise mathematical combination. Had he been a few hundred meters closer, or had he stayed upright for even half a second longer, the heat and pressure would have been instantly fatal. When he finally stood up, his body was severely damaged. The blast ruptured his eardrums, temporarily blinded him, and left heavy radiation burns across the left side of his upper body. Still, he refused to stop moving. He was looking out at a city that had practically ceased to exist. To find a way out, he had to navigate through miles of flattened urban ruins, wading through rivers choked with debris and fires that were actively burning. Against steep odds, he eventually located 2 surviving colleagues. Together, they made their way to one of the only functioning transit points left, managing to secure a spot aboard an overnight rescue train. As you can see by this historical locomotive, the infrastructure was heavily strained, but it was moving outward. His body was broken, but his mind locked onto a single objective: getting back to his wife and his son. That relentless drive pushed him through an apocalyptic landscape that by all medical logic should have stopped him in his tracks. 3 days later, on August 9th, he arrived in Nagasaki. Covered in bandages and reeling from the trauma, a deep sense of duty compelled him to report directly to his engineering office instead of going to the hospital. He sat at his desk, actively trying to explain to his highly skeptical boss that a single bomb had wiped out an entire city. His boss told him he was crazy. At that exact second, a familiar, blinding light filled the room. This cross-section shows the second set of physics that kept him alive. This time, he wasn't saved by a ditch, but by the reinforced concrete walls of the Mitsubishi Engineering Building. The dense structural engineering absorbed and deflected the blunt force of the blast. Zooming out to look at the macro-geography of Nagasaki, we see another vital factor. The city is built across natural, steep hills. These ridges acted as massive physical barriers, containing the blast energy and redirecting much of its force away from his specific location. Surviving the second bomb required an entirely different set of physical barriers. In Hiroshima, it was a natural depression in the dirt. In Nagasaki, it was the combination of robust structural engineering and the city's mountainous terrain. He eventually made it back to his family, and the war ended shortly after. But while the immediate explosions were in the past, he brought home an invisible, long-term threat. He would grapple with severe radiation sickness for decades. Photographs like this one reflect the human cost that lingered long after the smoke cleared. Over the ensuing years, he endured the slow loss of his wife and son to radiation-related illnesses. For most of his adult life, he coped with this profound trauma through absolute silence. In his 80s, he finally broke that silence. He began giving public testimony and traveling to the United Nations, using the time he had left to transform his private trauma into a public record of what he had witnessed. He spent his final years advocating for the total abolition of nuclear weapons, ensuring the world understood the physical reality of the bombs. His life remains a documented piece of evidence for the catastrophic cost of atomic warfare. Tsutomu Yamaguchi's journey is one of history's most unbelievable true stories. If you want to dive deeper into incredible historical accounts like this one, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next video.